The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear. And the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist. But we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, coming to you within a cannon shot of historic Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me. Now, Arcane Radio and Beyond Explanation channel made possible by you liking, subscribing, and sharing our programming. Super chat donations are essential for us to continue offering you our unique content, so your consideration is very much appreciated. Now, before we get started tonight, I just want to mention a few things. Manuel Not Red contacted the team last night and said there's been another winged humanoid reported near O'Hare International. So as soon as we receive that, I'll present it for everyone to read on the blog. So, we haven't had one in a bit, so that's good to hear that starting to happen again. As well, talking about the team, we've got, the team website is cryptidhunters.org. So if you want to read team reports and look at the team themselves, they're listed there. And like I said, anything comes up off of there, you can contact me directly through that website as well. So, I had a report today, and this is something that we've been getting recently, and it has to do with these feral people or feral clans roaming throughout the Appalachian Mountains. Now, this one I posted recently was in McDowell County in West Virginia, and but we've been getting mostly a lot more of these sightings along the southern Appalachian Mountains in the area around Great Smoky Mountain Park, and Tennessee, North Carolina, in that area. So if you have any experiences with this phenomenon, you hear about anything, I really appreciate if you contact me through the blog. This is something I'm going to continue looking into. Now, there's another phenomena that's been going on, and it's starting to pick up more and more, though it's something that we have noticed over the years, mostly on the East Coast, in the mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains and areas north and south. But it's the knot deer phenomena, and it's been producing more sightings and reports. The emergence kind of started in the Appalachians several years ago, but most thought that these were just simply sick deer. There's a wasting disease that seems to hit the whitetail population especially during the summertime. But the body mutations that people are noticing and reporting, and also the weird activity, are pretty dramatic. So it's not the wasting disease, because you can actually see that because they develop tumors on them. But now we're starting to receive more reports outside the eastern part of the U.S. We had a couple in the Rocky Mountains, and I think they were probably mule deer, if I remember now. But once again, anything comes up, feel free to contact me. I'd appreciate it. So tonight we have Bigfoot researcher, author, outdoorsman, Carter Buschardt. And Carter has been an investigator with the BFRO for the last 12 years. He's originally from Texas and currently lives in Missouri. He has had over 95 reports published to the BFRO website and has interviewed over 200 witnesses and counting. He's an experienced outdoorsman and trained as an investigator for MUFON. He studied herpetology in college, longtime special interest in Sasquatch long-term habituation sites, burial research, infrasound, language, and stick structures. Now, Carter's two recent books are titled Sasquatch, Evidence of the Enigma 1 and 2. Now, Carter is also a member of the Phantoms and Monsters 14 research team, and he is also being published at Beyond the Fray Publishing, who is my publisher now, and he has another book coming out very soon. So, Carter, thanks again for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here again.
Well, great. I'm glad to have you.
Yep.
You joined up with the team since you. Your original appearance, you hadn't joined the team yet, so we're glad to have you on here. So what's been going on in your world? Anything new been coming up?
Yeah, a lot of new stuff. It's kind of hard to tell where to start, but thanks for mentioning the book. It's an honor. I'm just an old hippie that took my notes and made a book, and somebody accidentally bought a couple of them, and now they're going to publish. They're going to redo my Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma 1 and 2. I'm going to be doing Sasquatch Down the Rabbit Hole of Strangeness, probably a 1 and 2, but I'll probably have a different cover. But that's the same creature on this cover you're looking at was on my first book. And that's from a guy who contacted me out of the blue about some stuff that's going on with him up in Canada. So it's all kind of flattering for this old hippie, so I don't know what to make of it, but there's something going on with the quantum and the paranormal abstract skill sets of these beings. And after I wrote the first book, these people came out of the woodwork because nobody will talk to them, and they sanitize their reports or just kind of scoff at them or take all the good stuff out and leave just nothing but the chaff. And so they've told me some incredible stories, and all I have to do is not reveal who they are. They don't want their names used. They don't want their locations used or occupations or anything. They're all got fake names and pseudo cities and states and what have you. They just want to tell it and get it off their chest without being laughed at and ridiculed, which happens a lot, and threat of losing your job and things of that nature. So I was blessed with a lot of people with some incredible events that you just go, oh my God, I can see why people are looking at you funny, because, hard enough to have a Bigfoot sighting. And then you go, this is how it all happened. They would tell me their story about their, rather mundane, I'll say mundane Bigfoot sighting. There was one watching me while I was fishing in the creek, or I saw one cross the road, and they tell you all that story and they go, now I'm going to tell you something you're not going to believe. And so I'm going, well, you just told me about a Bigfoot sighting, so now you're going to beat that. And so they come out with these incredible events, materializing, mind speak, infrasound events, possible hypnosis, who knows, telepathy. I mean, it's just the stuff they're saying. And, I vet my people by several things, but the one of them is they don't want any notoriety whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to hoax me or hoax anybody, you want to be there for the punchline. You run around in a ghillie soup in the woods, you're waiting for somebody to come up and you boo, and hey, I'm a Sasquatch. Yeah. Okay, I got you. You get your jollies, you go home and tell everybody, how cool you are. But these people, they don't want anything. If they're just telling me, I know you're not going to believe this, please just listen to, and I'm like, a therapist. And I'm also a witness advocate, because I want these people to be respected and listened to, because they don't know each other. They're all connected. The stories they're telling are like things I'm hearing from other people, things you've heard, Everybody on this program right tonight has probably heard some of this stuff from other unrelated people in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. So either you're very, very creative people, all of you people, or this is some really strange stuff going on. And the same thing with your Mothman and UFO stuff. I mean, when somebody's yanking your chain, maybe not right away, but further on down the internet, they all show themselves one way or the other. We all have our little ways of, the radar that comes on. But, they're just sincere. Some of these people have been sitting on this for 30 years. I can't tell anybody. I almost lost my marriage. I couldn't tell my spouse. He or she didn't believe it. And I almost lost my job. I'm a cop, or a pilot or whatever, or military. And so, forest workers. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. So anyway, it's amazing. So I've been very, very lucky, and I'll probably end up with a third book with this other guy that I'm dealing with. We'll continue to cooperate with some of the stuff that's been going on with him. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
I tell you, I think as time's going by, because the paranormal cryptid stuff you see on TV, there's a lot of people that have more access to more of the researchers and investigators now. I think they're more inclined to come forward when there's, of course, you're going to get people that are never going to do it, but I think people are more inclined to come forward and inquire if look, I saw this and that. You want to take my report, or you're not going to laugh at me or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I think there's more people coming forward now, and I hope it continues. I mean, and that's all up to us. It has to do with how we get involved, how we report it. I always say that when we get a report, we're part of the report.
Yeah.
I mean, we're part of it. So it's our job to report it to the best of our ability and put everything out there for everybody to discern what was really going on. And I think that the people are much more inclined to come forward now.
Well, I think so. That I absolutely agree. And the bogus UFO admission from the government, so to speak, didn't hurt anything really. We all kind of expected that balloon to burst. It was like, well, it's more of the, we just can't tell what it is, but there is something there, and we'll get back with you. Whatever. Come on, So, but people are coming through, and if you, like you said, we're part of the report, and I'm babying some of them along. I'm coaxing some things out because they're reluctant to say it because they've been laughed at church, at work, their spouses, good friends, family, whatever. So I'm just going to shut up, and fear of ridicule buys a lot of silence. It does. And it's just, it's the sad part. Same with the UFO thing. I mean, it's so, but I think it boils down to, technology and DNA for the Sasquatch. That's going to catch up. I think that's why the UFO thing was brought up, because technology, and they just told all the lies they could tell. They were out of stories. You got to come clean. You've been lying to us for 80 years, and it's the same with Sasquatch. We're taught from the day you come out of the birth canal. The teachers who taught the teachers who taught the teachers who taught the teachers go back 10 generations. That's 250 years. We've been lied to about there's no this, there's no UFOs, there's no great apes in North America. None of that ever happened. Oh wait, there are UFOs. So we've been lying for 80 years. Okay, well never mind that. But there's no Bigfoot. And it'll be the same thing. They'll finally have to come clean, and it'll be just a snack, just a little bit to wet and it'll be like it is with the UFO thing. But like you said, people are out, they're reporting, there's more technology at our disposal, right in our hands with our phone and cameras, and people are getting the courage to come on through, because the thought that there are other things and we may be in a 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 dimension world, hologram, you just don't know. And so you have to consider almost everything. You don't have to believe it, but you have to consider it, because, as far as Sasquatch, if you're a dumb ape in the woods group, you're seriously limiting your possibilities, because you'll discard everything that is not swinging from a tree, beating its chest, and killing a lion. You're going to discard everything else because that's your narrow paradigm. Okay, that's fair. That's your comfort level. Okay, but when all this other stuff's going on, you have more things to choose from. It may stimulate more answers. We may have 500 things on our plate. 475 of them are going to be tossed because, well, that theory didn't work. But whatever we got left is good stuff. It's the Brussels sprouts. Put them on your plate. Pretend like you're going to eat them just to make your host happy. Spread them around. Maybe eat one and cough it over your shoulder. But pretend to consider everything. And you might actually go, well, that actually makes sense. I can't believe I just said that, but it makes sense. So, but people are coming out. It's really awesome. I hope they continue. Somebody listening right now on your radio, your YouTube, and your commentary here, somebody right now is going, we got to tell him about that time, Bobby. It's just time to say something, because there is somebody that's just keeping quiet for fear,
Well, and we were talking earlier before we started the show about the connections between the different genres of the paranormal and how there's so much connection between this and that. And, I personally believe if you're an investigator nowadays, now I'm not going to say about the guys who have been doing this forever, but, some of us have kind of opened our eyes up, but, the new people that get involved with this, you got to keep an open mind. I mean, really, I think if I hadn't kept an open mind from the very beginning, I'd have probably gotten out of this a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Because you really just can't go with one paradigm. You kind of got to open it up and say, okay, that's interesting. So what's this other stuff that's going on too? Is this connected? And now, when you get a report, and it's almost about anything, any type of report, especially cryptids, there's something else going on.
Yeah.
So, I try to stress to people that, look, Stan Gordon has been talking about the UFO Bigfoot phenomena forever. There have been many of us that have talked about it and been laughed at and criticized with the interdimensional Bigfoot. That's the term they like to use. Mm-hmm. But more and more of these people who have been scoffing at it are starting to think about it more, and they're starting to open up a bit more.
Yep. Oh, they are. It's kind of funny, the ones that have crossed over, from the narrow-minded paradigm, and the connection with the Sasquatch and UFOs, potentially, and we were talking about synchronicity before we came on. And as that has been coming up in my end of the research lately, a guy contacted me up in the Northeast, and he had 6 hours of missing time with a Sasquatch. So first one of those I'd ever taken, and he went into great detail, and he's I can't tell you his name or location, but he's a successful businessman. He's a smart guy. He's a real smart guy. And he says, I want to be boring. I wanted my life to be boring. I don't want any attention. I want to raise my family, build a cabin in the woods, make my money, and be happy. And they moved to this property in the middle of nowhere and started adding on to a cabin. And his wife was the first one to mention, I saw a really huge man running across the yard tonight before he got home from work. Does that make sense? And they were unaware of Sasquatch in the area. They're aware of the concept, but and they come to find out that, she ended up calling the cops because it was there and it was setting off their motion lights. This is all before he got home. So they had, while he was mowing his yard a year or so later, he had watched two Sasquatches standing on a hill of his neighbor's property, watching him mow the yard. Because they were watching everywhere he went. He was on a riding tractor, mowing the yard. So they were aware of things. So he sends his wife off to live with her parents so they can shut off all the electricity at the cabin. They're going to add on 2 more bedrooms because they had a kid and they had another, and they wanted to expand the house. So that was going to be their home. So When he works his job all day, runs his business, he comes home late afternoon and supervises the construction crews. He kind of is like the general contractor, and then he makes sure all the tools and everything's locked up and put away, and then he goes and sleeps in the travel trailer. So everything's going along fine and dandy. One night he hears some rustling and some noise, and he hears a howl and a growl and some weird noises he's not real familiar with. And the dog is on point because this is, like I said, he's a 110-pound police-trained German Shepherd. He will kill your grandmother. You know, he's just one of those kind of dogs. You know, just don't make him mad. You know, so and the dog is growling and on point, but he won't go after it. He's trained to go after something. Right. He's just sitting there going, "I'm not going anywhere, but I'm going to let you know I'm kind of doing my job. I'm barking and growling, but I'm not going in there." And so he thought that was kind of odd. And so at that point when that was going on, so he pulled the dog back and they started putting some tools away. It was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And so long story short, to get to it, he suddenly sees this Sasquatch coming out of the dark, but it's lit up a little bit because he's got lights all over the place, you know, up in the trees and stuff. He's got lights, a lot of landscaping stuff, so he can see what it is. It's about an 8-9 footer at least coming at him. It's not running; it's just walking, but it's coming right at him. And the dog is sitting there going, just staring, you know. And so he's going, "We need to get out of here." So he puts the last load of tools in there and he runs to his trailer and he barricades himself in and he goes, "Oh crap, I forgot my gun. I don't have a pistol." So he scrounges through the kitchen drawer in this 32-foot travel trailer and he finds a carving knife, a big, carving knife. So he takes that and he sees this creature walking around the outside because he's got lights, so he can see it every now and then. There's enough ambient light plus the lights that are in the trees and in the house and the property. He can see every now and then, and it's walking through, and he's got these slat blinds in there, and he can see it. It's looking in the window at him, and it's looking in the front door. He just going, "Oh my God, it's going to break in here and kill me." And he didn't know what to do, and the dog is still sitting there going, "What? What do you want me to do?" And so they barricade themselves in the bathroom. If you know how big a bathroom is on a 32-foot travel trailer, it ain't that big. It's really or a person and a German Shepherd. So he gets on the floor and he puts his feet up against the door, and the carving knife that he found, he was holding out like this at the door. He was just waiting for him to come through, and he said, whatever it was, whatever it was going to do, I had this knife and I was ready, and if I died, whatever. And so that was about 11:30, and he wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. Same position. The dog is in a trance. Now, he's sitting up, but he's in a trance. And dogs don't sleep sitting up. So he wasn't asleep, but his eyes were open, but he was, he was out. He was just in this fixed trance. He lost 6 hours.
Yeah.
One of the weird things is when he heard the birds chirping and he heard the guys showing up for work. That's how he knew it was safe to go outside. So he gets up and he realizes what time it is. He's going, "I'm completely refreshed. My body, I'm not stuck like I've been sitting like this way for 6 hours. I was totally refreshed, like I just fell asleep for 2 seconds and woke up. I mean, I could not tell. I was cramped. I stood up. My legs were fine. Everything. I wasn't, cramped or having to stretch. Nothing. He was like it just happened for a second. Then so that blew his mind. And he went outside and went about the day. He didn't tell his wife for about 4 or 5 months after the kid was born. He waited, and he finally told her, And so that's when she said, "Well, I think I maybe had another thing or two happen around the house." But the whole thing was he lost 6 hours. And, the classic missing time is a UFO, and there is a potential alleged connection with Sasquatch and UFOs. I've heard some stories, and I have a theory why some of it might be happening if they're not totally involved in the phenomenon, period. But I suggested regression hypnosis, and he's considering it, but he doesn't know if he really wants to know what happened. That's the thing that bothers him, because I want a boring life. I don't want to be anybody. I don't want the word get out. I don't even want to. I don't know if I want to know. But 6 hours of your life is gone, and a Sasquatch chased you into a trailer. Come on, don't you want me to wonder?
You know, when you hear a story like that, and you know, I've heard a lot of weird stuff like that over the years, and if it involves a cryptid, it's kind of hard for somebody to argue with you that there's nothing supernatural about Bigfoot or any other cryptid. There's something there.
Yeah.
You know, if they have the ability, or if they're connected with some other type of being, say, you know, something that's flying the craft, a UFO or some type of alien craft, alien being or all above, there's something, then there's something supernatural or just not earthly about that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So he's mulling it over, but I don't think right now he doesn't want to go there. But that,
yeah.
You know, in some of the witnesses I've talked to, and they haven't given me a story of, you know, any length or substantive, you know, content to go any further than, well, I saw a Sasquatch and then I saw a UFO. Right after that, I saw a ship, and someone did tell me they saw one coming out of a ship. Mm-hmm. Well, if they are not intimately involved with the ETs and the craft, you know, they do animal abductions, you know, and a Sasquatch could have been something taken up, got some DNA, whatever, and they just happened to have seen them when they were let back down on the ground. Now that's a bizarre enough hypothesis, you know, as if you need one like that. But so that could be a partial explanation of a very minute part of the other stuff. A lot of it just involves, as soon as that Sasquatch appeared or disappeared, I saw a UFO or I saw a light or I saw an orb. So why is that? Why you start hearing that all of a sudden? Because there's a connection of some type. It could be that an orb, which is a spirit perhaps, is coming to see what's going on over here. I mean, or it could be that it's the ET or a Squatch coming from another dimension. You don't know. And all that sounds so sci-fi, but you're hearing this and you don't have any other choice. But when you start hearing it from 20% of the people you talk to, you go, I can't ignore this anymore. You know, I don't necessarily believe all of it, but I consider every darn bit of it because, you know, there is something there, and there's an undercurrent of strangeness going on. And people are, like you said, they are starting to talk about it and get a little bit braver. You know, we need, you know, about another 200,000 people of you to come out and finally tell your stories. Well, because that will convince.
I think, as opposed to several decades ago, when people had an encounter with, say, a Bigfoot or another type of cryptid, if they saw something that they couldn't explain, they kind of kept it out of the story.
Yeah.
They don't do that now. I mean, it seems that most of these folks will go ahead and add everything to it. I know I'm getting a feedback here, but I don't know what that's all about. I'll try to minimize it. But yeah, I mean, it seems like if something does happen that's associated with it, they will bring it up, which is good because we have no idea what all this is. And, you know, it just confuses us more, but that's just the way it goes. That's what we do,
Mm-hmm. Well, they always bring it up at the end of the report I originally called them about. Mm-hmm. And so, and they're waiting as you're doing your interview, you're interviewing them, and they quite possibly are interviewing me, and I just don't know it because I'm the official researcher guy, so, you know, I'm asking the questions, man.
But yeah, they will fish for information sometimes.
Yeah, maybe, you know, I don't know. But, you know, it could be that they're deciding if they're going to be comfortable enough to tell me the big story.
Sure.
Because they could, you know, and a lot of these people have been having some things for quite a while, and they've remained silent, and it eats them up. I mean, you know, if you've had any kind of traumatic event in your life, you know, it causes PTSD or worse, you know, you may not want to talk about it and put it on your sleeve and for everybody to know. It's private and confidential. You share it only with special people at certain times. So, but they're wanting to talk to you, because I find most of these people don't even want to talk to a researcher anyway. When they call in their story, that's it. I told you what happened. No, there's so much more in between all your sentences that I have to talk to you and find out, you know. So how far was it? How tall was it? What color? Did you see the face? Is it male or female? I mean, there's all kinds of questions. You know, you tell me one sentence, I saw a Sasquatch across the road in front of my car, 25 yards away. Well, there's 25 questions right there, and you're telling me 3 things. So come on. So, but you get it out of them, and they want to tell it. They just don't want to get laughed at and joked and you try to talk them out of it. Well, you sure it wasn't a deer standing on its hind legs, or a bear walking on 2 legs, or a guy pranking you? You know, they've heard that. They don't want to hear it. They want to talk about what happened, and without fear of ridicule and mocking and all that, and going, yeah, sure, right. Listen, hey, nice talking to you. I'll call you later. That's what they get. So
yeah,
that's why I go ahead.
Your 2 books, and this is the interesting and the good thing about your books. You're looking at the evidence. That you're looking at the evidence you're given.
Yeah.
What evidence that you have collected or documented surprises you the most?
Well, even though the habituation,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been studying that for a while. I've one of my first cases I picked up was an habituation. It was just literally about 30 miles from my house here in Kansas City. I live in Liberty, Missouri, but
right,
not far. As a crow flies, it's really easy to get there. And I was just fascinated because this is my first time in that scenario, and they take it like it's another day at the office.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so I've got some people I've been dealing with, working with them for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and they've got regular things going on their property. So the thing that really stood out to me, because you would love to be a ground zero on a UFO landing, right, Lon? I mean, I would want to be in the nest. I want to be watching a Sasquatch give birth. I mean, everybody wants to be at a seminal moment, So, but they're been going through habituation things, and I've only had 3 sightings, and they've all been at night on thermal cameras, and they're brief. The thing that stands out is that they're having these everyday relationships, or every week, and it's to the point where they don't think about it, or they forget to mention it. I'll call them up. Hey, what's been going on with you guys? Well, let's see. We went into the market. We went into Walmart and got some money orders, and went and got a haircut. And Bobby saw a Sasquatch holding her baby this morning. Did I tell you about that? No. I mean, did I tell you about the one we found 3 footprints? A muddy footprint on top of the dog's house, out the side of the house. I'm going, no. But I don't expect them to call me every time something happens. But the thing is, it's like an everyday event. I get up, brush my teeth, go walk the dog, see a Sasquatch, go to Walmart, go to Taco Bell, whatever, come home, do my thing. And it just becomes, and it's a comfortable thing for them. But that's the thing that shocks me is that, here we are beating the woods in the streets and the skies for some action. And they're just sitting back there, working the rose garden and planting some tomatoes and walking the dog and living out in the middle of nowhere, and these creatures got the run of the property. And it's just staggering, the sameness of it for them. You understand what I'm getting at?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's mind-boggling. I'm so happy for you. And would you like to adopt me? I'll move to the country. Please, take me. Please, take me.
I have been involved with a few. But one in particular was one that I got involved with up in Nova Scotia, and I talked to Sean about this, and where this guy he was a farmer, but he had livestock and stuff, and there was a family of Sasquatch, probably about 6 of them with some youngsters hanging about, and it was just like, oh yeah, it's another day on the farm. There's a Sasquatch. Every once in a while they'll get in trouble. They'll go in the pig pen and slap the hogs around and do something really stupid, then leave gifts on the steps of the porch. And every once in a while at night, you had the window open and want to walk by, and you got to fumigate, that type of thing.
Yeah,
and it's just like there's nothing going on. But I tell you, this particular habituation in Nova Scotia had a lot of UFO activity involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about big craft. And in fact, the guy whose name was Gary, he swore up and down he saw one of these Sasquatch come out of a huge orb-like craft at one point. And I didn't doubt him. I mean, the guy, you know, he was so laid back and, you know, but, you know, he can, in the way he contacted me, he said, you know, I've got some things going on my farm. I don't know if you're interested, but I'm willing to talk to you about it. I said, okay. And this guy had sketches and all kinds of stuff. He had written a journal. He had written down what had happened this day, that day. Amazing stuff.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah. And it's in the everyday fabric of their life.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's as an exciting. It has just as much power and importance as a trip to the Walmart to get some veggies. You know, and I saw a Sasquatch and I saw an orb. You just that's why I do this. I mean, I'm fascinated because I want to know the answer. You know, like who are these people? And I do think they're people. They're not creatures. They're beings. You know, they're smarter than we are by a long shot. Guarantee you. You know, we can't even see in the forest at night. So I mean, you know. Anyway, long story. Anyway, so. What are they doing here? And I want to know all that. We deserve as humans, if there is any minute connection, and I know there is, we deserve to know. I mean, why wouldn't we? You know, yeah. It's all part of the, you know, the cosmos and the universe and the earth and the stardust and everything. We're all part of the same thing. So, but knowledge is power, and the U.S. is sitting on it. The Forestry Service and the lumber companies and the timber companies are sitting on it because there's money to be made and there's power to be had by the secrets we keep. You know, so it's very frustrating because you know little simple hippies like me and aren't going to get anywhere by myself. You know, even if we're 5,000 strong, we're not going to get much. You know.
Well, if you get in too deep, they'll let you know about it.
Oh yeah, and that's what you know. You're talking about your guy in Nova Scotia. I got a guy up in Canada, and he was just telling me, and this is a classic. He was on a lumbering crew, 19 years old. This guy's been having these creatures involved in his family for 40 some odd years, 40 to 50. He's 65 now, and this started when he was 10 to 13. He saw his first when he was, I can't remember, but way back. We're just getting into that. But he's on a forestry crew, 19 years old. They take 12 guys out to an area to plant trees, seedlings and stuff, where they've some recent logging and some old logging. And so they split up into two groups. They go out there, and immediately his group of 6, they're just prancing around the woods, and they're so giddy and euphoric, and you know nobody knows why. And they start looking around on the ground, and there's footprints. Bare footprints and handprints of all sizes of squats. They're bare feet. What else are they? You know, they're all over this area. And then as he gets to the top of this ridge, they all see all of these gigantic prints, 20 to 25 inches, you know, big boys, you know, big guys, 12 footers, you know. And so, but it all happened to them all at once. And nobody really acted like it was anything unusual. They were all doing it, and they were all experiencing the same thing at the same time. It was just bizarre. And it wasn't the sight of the prints, because as soon as they got out of the truck, they started running amok. It was just bizarre. The other 6 guys were the more macho guys. They're hunters. They're not scared of anything. They're real macho hunter guys, you know, and they wanted to run way deeper into the woods to maybe see some game. You know, nobody had any guns, but they just wanted to see, maybe I'll see a big elk or a bear or something. And so they ran into the deep woods. They ended up getting chased. Trees were shaking. Giant 100-foot trees were shaking back and forth. They heard some growling, and they all come running back. My whole point of telling you this, the foreman's sitting there, and he's watching all of this. He's going, what the? And he knows, gets on the radio. He knows what's going on. They get back. He starts talking to him. What do you think? What'd you see? What'd you hear? What's going on? What's wrong with you guys? Long story short, you guys do not say a word about this or you're fired. This didn't happen. You say nothing to anyone, period, end of conversation. Half the guys, when they went out the next time, half of them had just quit. They just left. They were totally freaked out. Most of them were the macho guys that went down there and had probably some type of infrasound or some type of cosmic or psychic connection with these creatures because they were freaked out,
Yeah.
And so, and then the rest of the 6 guys, they put each of them on a different crew so they would have no one to talk to. I said, you talk, you're fired. You say nothing. And how many times have you heard that? Or I have heard it many times.
Yeah, well, I've heard it in other situations.
And so, the threat bias to silence. You know what you saw. You know what you experienced. And nobody saw one, but everything but, and the evidence, all these bare feet. And the story is much more complex than that. There was an area scraped out that looked like they were playing games and stuff. But that's a whole other theoretical thing. But anyway, but I've heard this at least a dozen times, if not more, and anybody you read about at all in the forestry, I mean, you didn't see this, didn't happen. You hear it from cops, pilots, other, UFOs, Sasquatch, but I've heard that so many times, and other people have too with the Forestry Service that, because they're in their territory, and they went too deep in the woods, and that's why they were chased off, because they went so deep to where, like, it's possible no one has ever been there before,
Right.
Humans. Because it's so far deep and there's no roads. You go back there and you cut a path to get to where you want to go and take all the old growth trees. So no one's, but they know that's going on and it's all hushed up, and it's the same thing with UFOs. If a pilot or a cop or a military guy sees the UFO, maybe not now, but say 10 years ago, you didn't see nothing. We're not writing this up. It didn't happen,
Well, one thing I find fascinating are these search and rescue people. Now, I'm talking about professionals and volunteers, but they see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I have talked to a few of them in the past, and it's just not Sasquatch, or it's just really weird stuff. It's just totally unexplained. You hear all about this 411 missing and all this other stuff, and stuff going on in the state parks. Well, you mentioned today I posted something about 2 hikers in Virginia who lost time after they heard this real metal on metal thing. And who's to say they weren't abducted? I mean, when they woke up, they were sitting in their car. So who's to say they weren't abducted at some point?
Yeah.
But it's that kind of stuff. If you're working in search and rescue and somebody tells you that, or you see something you can't explain, first of all, you got to watch how you report it. When you write the report up and then say, well, this happened, and and you got to really be careful. But a lot of these folks who I've talked to, they've been there for a short time. They've seen way too many things they can't explain, and that's it. They're not going back in there.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and a couple of my habituation people, they have seen massive craft, 100 yards long.
Oh yeah,
slowly going, and on the front of their house faces a chip rock road, goes for about a mile down into the woods, and so this craft is just slowly cruising down their road, probably about 100 feet in the air. It's massive. It's 100 yards long. It's long, cigar-shaped, cylindrical type craft, silver, and it's glowing, and it's at night, but there's no obvious light. It's just emitting a sense of light. It's odd the way they described it. It's like it was backlit, but if it was backlit, there'd be lights across the street on the trees, and there wasn't. So anyway, it was an odd thing, but they've seen that stuff. And who's to say they're not coming and checking people out, because they're having Sasquatch events? Maybe the Sasquatch are related. If you consider all of this, if you believe that all of this is going on in some way, shape, or form in the first place, and then you factor in, well, I'm going to listen to at least some of this because this is actually explains some things. I mean, I believe it, but boy, it got to make sense whether I hate to admit it or not. And then you get to the stuff that just totally blows your mind. If you're open to any of that, just to consider it, you're going to have such a variety opinions to have. You know, you're going to have a influx of energy and thoughts from all the other people in the events. You're going to interpret them on your own and go, wow, if I'm a thinking, honest person and I talk about this to myself, well, what am I going to think? What am I going to say if nobody's listening? And that's maybe what's a lot going on. But the whole thing is, if you just keep an open mind about all this stuff, it is fascinating. And there's thousands more just like you experiencing this stuff. Oh, here we go. Dina. Oh, yes, I do.
That is a good question.
Yeah, it is. Yes, she would know. But yes, I do believe that because on the visitation or habituation properties, you're wanting a relationship. And if you encourage it, that's even better. But if you just do the visitation, which I document as letting them come and go, but you're not encouraging or discouraging. You just interact and live your own separate lives. Habituation is where you're feeding them and wanting them to come out. But you end up having a relationship, even at a long distance, with visitation, because you know their habits, you're going to see them, they might wave or something. And it's like you're talking with a primordial beast, maybe something that's been around millions of years, 500. I mean, who knows how long they've been around, who they are. So you're encouraging it. And when you consider them harmless, I wouldn't say you might call them a friend, but you certainly would be protective of them if there were hunters or people after them. You'd want to let people know about that stuff. So, yeah, that's a good question, actually. Good question.
Any reports of rhythmic clicking sound with no visual sighting of the source? Well, I can say when I had my encounter, now I saw the thing, but it was clicking. It was gnashing its teeth. I don't know. Have you heard of anything about that? Just the clicking sound and not seeing anything?
No. The only thing that comes to mind is rock clacking. And I have heard them. What I assume was one. It was very loud. Clicking his teeth. And so I know they can do that. But I have not experienced it myself. There's a good one. Who is it? That's a troublemaker, isn't he? Vince Richardson?
Yeah, he's the troublemaker.
I've heard that name before somewhere.
Yeah, he's on here. He works with us.
Yeah. You had to let him go. So could the aliens be using Sasquatch as avatars? Do you want to take that? What do you think? I don't think so. Honestly,
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I've never found any evidence it could be, but who knows?
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think in a way it could be reversed.
Actually, I was going to say,
I don't know if you saw it on the thread. Yeah, it is of possibly a cloaked Sasquatch or a Glimmer Man sighting.
Yeah, I saw that. Looked like a leg, but it looked more like a tree after a while. It just it went off, and it looked like it was something very long and tall, kind of laying out at like a 45-degree angle or something.
When Lewis gets that information, I'm going to look into it. Maybe we can talk to the witness, but that's bizarre. I mean, that's a pretty good one too. I've seen a lot of the Glimmer Man stuff. I've seen just a very few pictures of it, but that one was very interesting. So, are they? You think about the Predator movies, or do they have the ability to do that? I know a lot of researchers who believe that Sasquatch and other cryptids have cloaking abilities of some type.
I'm starting to get pictures from people regarding that.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that video, Squatching with Gabby and something? And it's got this cloaking Sasquatch. Look it up. It's Squatching with Gabby and somebody. Okay. And the night before or the day before, they thought they saw a Sasquatch. I think it was the night before.
Okay.
And so they went back to that place the next day to see if there was any prints or any trace. And they were the lady named Gabby was sitting. She was talking to the camera, and the camera was pointing at the place where it happened behind her. And all of a sudden, you see this gelatinous mass, kind of humanoid figure, but it's definitely a figure of some type, kind of morphing and then going back into the trees, and some of the trees move a little bit.
That's bizarre.
And somebody goes, "What was that?" And they didn't even see it.
Yeah.
The person shooting the camera saw it, but Gabby didn't, and nobody else that was there. There was 2 or 3 other people. They didn't see it. And then they played it back. But look, it's fast. If it's not staged, and I don't think it is, I can tell on pictures. Mostly, I have photo tampering stuff, but videos, right. I haven't mastered that yet. But it sure looks, and the reactions were like priceless. Is Squatching with Gabby, but if you look it up, it's a very short clip. But when they slow it down and everything, I think Thinker Thunker's done some stuff with it. It's very interesting. So I don't put that past them. If they can do some of the other things we even think they can, why could not they do that? Why could not an orb? And we all associate orbs with ghosts and spirits. Well, what if an orb happens just to be the form of energy you take while you're transforming from one sense of being to another, or one dimension or another? Maybe that's just your mode of travel. That's like you have to become this blue orb of energy to survive the trip into the next dimension. Now we're getting all woo woo, but it's all possible, and a lot of that's proved by quantum physics and quantum math. It's possible.
How many, basic question, this is from Depocalypse, types of Sasquatch are there in the wild? I know of, there are a lot of different types. It may be the same species or very close, but there are different body types. Of course, you got up in the upper Pacific Northwest, you've got the very reddish, hairy, thick hair beings.
And giant.
A lot of times you got groups of them. Down in Florida, you got the skunk ape type, smaller, that are very thick hair, very reddish color, and they're
hostile
and a bit hostile. In the Gulf Coast, along into Louisiana, East Texas, and such. Of course, in Arkansas, you've got you've got some type of being. And those I've just said, I believe they are indigenous. I do believe that those 3 areas, that what we are seeing or people are seeing, are indigenous beings. Mm-hmm. And there was a question earlier about them breeding, and I think they do breed. But as far as what's going on in other parts of the country, in particular, or in North America, some parts of North America, first of all, you see a lot of singular beings, a lot of singular Sasquatch, and they seem to just show up for the most part. You see them in some areas where you think people, if they were really there all the time, there'd be more than one person seeing them. But then again, they are masters of disguise, so I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I think they are. I think they're everywhere, and I judge them more not by body type, by personality type, which dictates, your social structure and the type of people you have and the type of people you might meet and breed with, all that. But, I think they have the same types of personalities that we do. We have really nice people. We have clergy type people. We have presidents. We have politicians. We have workers. We have musicians, artistic, whatever. Angry people, hostile people, peaceful, spiritual people, and everything in between. And I think it's the same with the Sasquatch people. I think they.
Do you think they got a hierarchy?
Yeah, I think they do. I think it's more in clans. Like more in regional groups. I think nothing to base that theory on, and just and hearing things from people who are seeing large groups on a regular type basis, and they see the same ones. But that could just be for that specific area. It could be for that 200 square mile area, and it could be going totally different somewhere else. But I think that their personality types dictate, who and what they are. And I think there's so many of them. The body type just kind of meld. Although, what Lon said, you've got the skunk apes in Florida, they're a little shorter and hostile. You got the big giant guys up in Canada and Pacific Northwest. I mean, they're the 10, 12 footers and they're massive. And you're usually the red haired giants, as they say. And you've got kind of the rest of them are kind of like the mutts. We're all the mutts. The mutts are all the rest in the middle area. You've got, for Ohio, they've got certain types, and Texas, Missouri, and everything. We all got everything. They're a little bit different. They're kind of mutts. They've kind of soiled their genetics, so to speak, as we have over, however many years we've been here. Your gene pool just changes and evolves. I think theirs does too, just like ours. I don't think they're that different in that aspect. So, Vince had put up an interesting question. Do we have time?
Yeah, about your most memorable paranormal experience, Sasquatch or otherwise.
Well, gosh dang it! Not to plug the book, but this one told me I was on the right track. Real quick, I led an expedition in Illinois, 2019 for BFRO. There was only 4 people that showed up. There was a bunch more. They had canceled the expedition because the person who was going to do it couldn't. And
right.
So, but they had all these people that wanted to go. Well, by the time they found somebody, I just volunteered because they put out an APB. I'll do it. So I ended up with 4 people. Long story short, we go to Illinois, and one of the guys that was with me and paid to be there was a local. And he said, well, there's a place in town that nobody goes after dark. I mean, we can't go there. It's bad. Bad things happen. Nobody likes it. Even the baddest guys in town will never go near there at night. Mm. Where is it? That's where we're going. And that's where we went. So we had moderate Sasquatch activity. We had a group follow us. We did find 5 footprints, and we had 3 trees pushed over the first day on top of the prints to try to hide them after we catch the prints. And then the next day we found 2 more prints. They pushed 2 trees over. They, being the Sasquatch, they pushed the trees over to hide the print. So we couldn't find them when we got back. So that kind of stuff, they were jacking with us. They never made a verbal thing. We never heard anything. We heard them moving and crashing and thrashing around. They were throwing stuff at us and rocks and pebbles. And we went there at night, and it was that all night. It was crazy, weird, active that way, but nothing out of the ordinary. And so we go home, and that's it. And it was me, 4 people, and Harold, who's my Sasquatch buddy in Illinois. So 6 of us all together. So Harold and I decided to meet and go back there 1 year to the date, which was October of last year, just 6-7 months ago, 8 months ago, 9, I can't do the math, whatever, October of last year. And he and I go to where we had our event with the Sasquatch throwing stuff at us, and we were around the corner, and we're just kind of looking around, and I'm leaving some things out, but they're not really important in the scheme of things. But I decided to leave. There was a tree that blocked our way. That tree had been cut in 3, and I know it was probably from the hunters that were going out and having to drag their 300-pound carcasses of deer up this ravine. So I know they came back and cut it and got their kill out. Anyway, we go and we see the area. I decide I'm going to leave a couple of cameras here. I'll come back in the morning at 8:30 on my way back to Kansas City. It was just a 1-day trip. I go back the next morning, and on the tree that is right next to where one of my cameras is, there's 6 rocks. This tree is on the ground. There's 1 rock that's a pointed, bigger rock. There's 4 people behind it. That's 5 of us. That's me and the 4 people. And on the other end of the tree is Harold's rock. He was there, but he wasn't there. He had some physical limitations at the time, so he couldn't make that trek at night. He's a big guy. He has cancer. He's had a couple strokes. He just, he's been beat up. So he stayed back in his car in the parking lot. So that's 6 of us. They knew I was coming back the next morning, and that was there for me to find. They were the same squats that were there the year before. This is my theory, but I'll put money on it. And they knew I was coming back to get the camera. And they thought it was probably both of us, but Harold, he lives in Illinois, so he went his way. I went back to Kansas City. They knew I was coming back, and that was there for me to find.
Wow.
Pure, simple. And, you know, and I've, in the first book I talked, they can count, but that is truly, to me, it's phenomenal. And since that time, I've had weird things going on at the house, weird things. It just, there's a strangeness, but there was connection. They were showing me. And if the show was longer, I'd tell you how I think they're showing me. But it's just, that is like, to me, it's incredible. The numerology reeks of, like, they had the number down. They had the big arrow pointing one direction. I'm the leader. They had 4 people behind me. That's the 4 people that paid to be on the expedition. There's Harold at the other end. He was there, but wasn't there. The second night we went back, he was there, but he stayed back at camp. So again, he was not there, but he was with us in spirit. He was there, but he wasn't there. So it's just, that's my most slap in the face. Like, if you don't get that, if you can't even at least think that might be what we're doing, you're an idiot, you know? And so, you know, maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot anyway. You know, I mean, it's just, it's a shoulder tap that you need. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
You
know.
Well, Carter, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. It's always appreciate you having on, and we will definitely have you back on again.
All righty.
You take care.
Everybody. Thanks for the question.
Have a good weekend. Okay.
You too, man. We'll catch you.
Now, if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site. I want to again thank Carter Bouchard for joining me this evening. And thanks to each and all you for watching and chatting. If you did make a super chat donation, it's truly appreciated. Your support is what makes this possible. So please like, subscribe, and share. Now, next week, Anna Manalo is going to be on. She's going to talk about some of the strange things she's encountered when she was living in the Philippines. You know, I had her on years ago, but she just had her book republished. So it should be interesting. There's a lot of crazy things going on in the Philippines. So join us next week for that. So until next week, stay healthy. Have a safe, enjoyable weekend. Good night.